Welcome back. This is Chicken Philosophy. Carl Jung's Black Books, part 61, in which I will read another entry. And if it's short, maybe I'll read two. We'll see how it goes. I didn't peek ahead. I never do. Except for sometimes. Is this the right book? Where's the bookmark? There it is. Oh, the behind-the-scenes movie magic happening right before your eyes. Special guest today, Hanuman. And, all right, so before we get started, this is my favorite incense of all time. It's so good. I started collecting Tibetan incense. And I think I've got them all. I'm sure there's others. I mean, brand-wise. And this one is kind of hard to find. And it's so good. My God, I can't believe how good this is. It's Yangtze, like the river in China, but not the same. I know when I first was like, what is this like? Is this a Chinese knockoff? No. Yangtze is also the name of a Tibetan monastery in Nepal. I don't know exactly what it means or any of the linguistics around it, but it's Tibetan, and it's so good. And the packaging, it's just, look at this. Anyway, I recommend it if you can get your hands on some. This is the second to last. There's one left. I will save it for a good Buddhist books recital on the other sister podcast. We're coming up on a 5 again. So that means, in other words, we just did 254. Tipitaka has been rather dull lately. It's been on the different types of medicine. And maybe it'll get good again. But, I mean, the thing is, like I do with everything, whether it be Carl Jung or whatever it is that I choose to read on here, I read every word aloud. And if it's dull, you get to watch me respond to dullness. And Buddhist Books Podcast has been going for 2.5 years. Oh my God, has it been going for 3 years? It's been going for 3 years and minus a few days. No! Oh, by the way, today's December 4th. Happy would-be birthday, Mom. She would be 79, right? Yeah. Tomorrow, I think. No, 11 days from now is December 15th, and that, if I'm not mistaken, no, tomorrow, December 5th, tomorrow is the 3-year anniversary of when I started the Buddhist Books Podcast. And the Buddhist Books Podcast eventually led me to start Chicken Philosophy. That's the lore for you. And in these 3 years, there's been plenty of good episodes. There's one episode that is more grotesque, more disgusting, just beyond, just too much. It's right here. It's like an hour and a half long. It's when I got to the end of the first book, and a more recent translator decided to put in all in one place the stuff that was too gross for I.B. Horner. I.B. Horner is a lady. I don't know what I stands for. And she's the translator of everything I've read so far from the Tipitaka, which is the Pali Scriptures, meaning before Sanskrit. It was the original scriptures of the original Buddhism. And so there were all these rules where Lord Buddha was like, don't have sex. And they're like, well, what if it's with a monkey? And he's like, don't have sex with a monkey. And then the monks are like, well, he didn't say it couldn't be a dead monkey. And it kind of went downhill, if you can imagine, from there. So imagine an hour of things that were so gross and disturbing that the original British translator lady in the 1930s working for the Polytech Society was just like, oh, no. Oh, I can't make my fingers type these words. I won't. I'm going to just say they did bad stuff. And so anyway, in more recent decades, someone else with a Russian-ish sounding, probably not, last name, whose name I've forgotten, but I owe thanks for that one episode, went back and said, okay, here's the stuff that she refused to translate. And so that episode I pointed to earlier is that. It's fun. Let's just play 3.5 seconds of that.
Ejaculate the color of buttermilk. Ejaculates the color of curd.
Yeah. So if you're twisted like me, then that will be something to enjoy. Anyway, never mind. So here we go, lighting my favorite incense. And, yeah, I don't know. I honestly thought, the nice thing about when it's Edward, did I say welcome to Chicken Philosophy and all that? I think I did. And it says the blue Edward was up there. When it's Edward, that means it's me without a hat, with my normal, like, if somebody were to knock on the door and say, excuse me, I was just, wondering, I'd have a certain kind of like, yes. And that's what we call Edward. When I'm alone and I'm like, okay, you know what? Mask off. Here it goes. Put on the hat. Fucking what? That's the idea. Gwydion used to be, at one time, he's been through his own journey of evolution, but he used to be, I used to go out with this friend of mine and get rip-roaring drunk. I don't recommend doing it, but for me, it was like it was a period in my life where I had been a good boy. I had been, a Golden Dawn adept, like cutting off friends, leaving bands, and, streamlining my life so that I was mostly just in a room with white cloth up on the walls doing, his invocations and, all this kind of stuff. There'd been a bit of drama, and I had seen behind the curtain and come to realize that all the disgusting rumors about the leadership of the group were not only true, but it was worse than I had heard. So I was simultaneously, it was this dissonance where I was trying to live as a kind of monk, an urban monk, in a sense, in a holy order, but it was disguised as kind of a disgusting cult, if that makes sense. I know it doesn't make sense, the things that go on in people's heads, right? And so anyway, then I had this one student who was like, so what do you do? What do you do for fun? And I'm like, fun? What's that? I would occasionally meet up with my friend Chris at 1 a.m. When he was a bartender. But, so she took me out to like Hollywood and these clubs and bars that were like cool or whatever. I don't know, things I never would have gone to. And so I just decided, like, to help myself kind of like become less self-conscious, I started wearing this black fedora that my friend Karen had gotten me. And yeah, getting very drunk, and when someone would try to kick me out of a bar, I'd say, do you know who I am? And just like, I became this other character that was totally unlike Edward, So that's Gwydion. I mean, that's one aspect of Gwydion. Like I said, Gwydion has evolved over the years. And BT, you know BT. I don't need to tell you about BT. All right. So, yeah, what was I saying? The nice thing about Edward is I don't have to do any preparation other than put a shirt on. Full disclosure, I live in a tropical climate. I don't wear a shirt. When I go outside to, if we order food that's being delivered, I don't put on a shirt to go outside either. My landlord doesn't wear a shirt. It's Goa. People don't, men don't wear shirts. Anyway. I mean, a lot of people do, but a lot of people don't. So I do put on a shirt. That's the only preparation, aside from grabbing from my grab bag of... Sometimes I grab from the grab bag of mala beads or something. Yes, it was in a singing bowl, if you were wondering the sound. Anyway, yeah. So it's like an uber lazy thing for me to do these chicken philosophy episodes as Edward. I don't have to wear something that makes me feel warmer than I already am. The temperature's okay today. Touch wood, as they say here, or knock on wood. The dog is being quiet at the moment. So, we're good. Editor Edward, if you would put on some music that I don't yet know is appropriate, but you know, because you're me in the future. Let's hit it. February 15th, he skipped 3 days, 1914. Yet, since things have become strange, neither warm nor cold, neither forward nor backward, I will consult with my soul about what is to happen now. What do you think about the current situation? Quote, I think that what is going on is odd. End quote. What is it? Quote, something is taking place, but the trick consists precisely in finding out what is going on. End quote. Do you actually know what is taking place? Quote, I don't know either, but I always have ways of finding out. End quote. It's comforting to know that. Quote, or discomforting, because it is costly to be taught a lesson. Nothing comes from nothing. End quote. What do you mean? Do you mean it is costly to get to the bottom of things? Quote, of course. Everyone has the ability to find out what is taking place, but not everyone can afford to pay the price. It is quite exhausting. End quote. Yeah, it is, isn't it? That is what I thought too. It is a very special and exhausting struggle. What do you think? Is it worth the effort? Quote, I think so, yes. I.e. if, cross out I.e. if, insofar as you have the time for it. End quote. Don't you think one could use the time in a better way? Quote, use it in a better way. What for? There is a reason why you pursue such things, and by the way, you already know that. End quote. That's right. I actually know it. But I am worried by the thought, if and how this will continue, and if and how we will reach a conclusion. Quote, of course you would like to know that, but the future is dark, and everything to come still needs to be done. End quote. Que sera, sera, whatever we... Sorry. The uncertainty and unpredictability are difficult to bear. Quote, naturally, but who says it is an easy load to carry if one wants to create, underline create, the future and not just live it? End quote. The uncertainty aggravates this work many times over. Bracket parentheses, quote, and bracket parentheses, thank you, Sonu. What do you want? What is uncertain is uncertain. The only certainty is that you create. End quote. But, what? But, cross out but. I'd be glad to. Is this one of those things where you did a quote and it's still the soul talking? Why was there an end quote? Maybe the paragraph ended without a quote. Another paragraph began with a quote, which is appropriate, but then you got rid of the line break and moved the second paragraph up so that it starts immediately after the previous paragraph ended, and your computer software somehow automatically moved the opening quote to be a closing quote of the previous paragraph that's no longer a paragraph. At a certain point, Editor Edward, skip to when I find the handwriting.
iman Allah Allah. Her yer ihtilaf, şer ve istilah, bence bir liman Allah Allah. Gerçekte kitapta yazılı bu Kur'an. Dur bak burada flow mus'ab, anlatır hak kitap, yalan ve hakikat, cabası tarikat Allah Allah. Sana yobaz derler, böyle olmaz derler, onlar gibi düşünmedikçe çoban derler. Biz Müslümanız, düşüncemiz hüsnü zandır. Bak istediğin güçle saldır. Biz Rabbe müptelayız. İşimde Allah, dilimde Allah, zikrimde Allah, fikrimde Allah, aklımda Allah, aşkımda Allah.
Okay, I've gotten to the bottom of it. It's stupid. What it is Editor Edward, could you put this up on the screen for a second? It's an end quote that's been crossed out. So Carl Jung thought that his soul was going to stop talking. But then it occurred to him that his soul had more to say. So he crossed out the end quote. In the transliteration or whatever, in the typed version, in the back, the part that we read here, it's just an end quote that's just hanging there with no indication that it's been crossed out. Hence the confusion. Now we know. All right. Thank you for the assist on that, Editor Edward. Continuing. Even the value of what you do is doubtful, inevitably so. Because you have no means to judge the value of present things in any way. That only manifests itself later, if things are of value at all. One needs to live with uncertainty. That is for certain. Only an intellectual can get agitated about that. End quote. I'm not especially agitated about it. I only prefer that it be as comfortable as possible. Quote, now that is what I call shamelessly honest. This is progress. End quote. Thank God. At least you think that I'm making some progress. The word itself is already balsam to my ears, Editor Edward. An aromatic, resinous substance such as balm, exuded by various trees and shrubs and used as a base for certain fragrances and medical preparations, and an herbaceous plant cultivated for its helmeted pink or purple flowers. Thank you. Balsam. Use it in a sentence today. All right. What? Yes. Quote. That's not what she said. She said, it seems to me that you miss the devil. There is not enough haste and nerviness around for you. End quote. Not at all. I like the tranquility, but my head throbs as if it were pregnant. I long for delivery. Quote, your pregnancy has not ended yet. I don't want to talk about patience all the time. End quote. Me neither. But one knows nothing for certain. Quote, stop it. What certainty do you want? End quote. I don't want any more. I'd rather talk in a roundabout manner. Quote, then you don't want to get into it. End quote. That might be it. Even the thought of it makes me sick. Quote, take the whip and goad your horse. It's not weary, just lazy. Weariness looks different. End quote. What shall I do? Quote, be prepared to latch on to what flies past. End quote. It's a train. Latch on, would you? Gordon used to talk about how much he admired his friend back in the 50s, I think, who threw his wallet with his ID and everything in the trash, I think. I want to say it was a fire, but I think he just threw it in the trash and jumped on a freight train, not knowing where he was going to end up. Gordon was like, Later he went to Africa. That partially is what inspired me to go on my journey that led me eventually to India. All right, what? Latch on to what flies past a train. That's where it, full circle. Ouroboros, whatever. Yes, I cross out I. Yes, that's true, but terribly boring things. Quote, you'd prefer sensations. That desire has got to go. Well, what do you want to catch? End quote. I can't help it. But for some time I've been seeing a ruler in front of me. An everyday straight edge. I got sick of it because it is shockingly boring. Quote, you have yet to understand the art of making your life interesting. End quote. I don't know. I think this whole Black Books project is pretty interesting personally, but maybe I'm easily amused. To make one's life interesting, that sounds like one of your worthy commonplaces which used to drive me mad. Bracket parentheses, quote, and bracket parentheses, thank you, Sonu. Or the team, whoever catches these and puts them in. Sometimes you miss them. It's okay. Nobody's perfect. Exactly. The commonplace is effectively true and thoroughly appropriate for you. Don't be so snobby. The commonplace is a rule of universal truth and a substantial certainty. That is what you are looking for. Now take your ruler and do not despise this instrument. Just think what a calamity it would be if one no longer had rulers. The foundations of culture would be shattered, and whoever reinvented the ruler would be seen as the greatest benefactor of mankind. You always forget how valuable the little things are that surround us every day. End quote. You are a dreadful pedant. Remind us, Editor Edward.
A pedant is a person who is excessively concerned with minor details or with displaying academic learning.
Thank you, Editor Edward. Words that I don't use for like 30 years start to fade away, and I need to be reminded sometimes. Anyway, quote, you provoked it. End quote. The ruler, just then, is black, like my magic rod. So that, too, is a ruler. Or a dildo, sorry. It is hard not to joke about this. I'm glad we're on the same page. For once, Carl. And straight to boot. By boot, do you mean... I'll just keep reading. I talk in your style, as you can see. By the way, as the rod emerges again, so too does the curiosity of what its meaning might be. It is, so it seems to me, quite a dark matter. Maybe it's dark matter. Yeah, no. Quote, look at your ruler. End quote. I see two hands carefully taking it at both ends. Picking up the ruler, I assume. And laying it on a table. And one hand draws a line with it, red line, cross out red line. Parenthetically, I must tell you that I had to gulp down my boredom. Quote, just be still. Just be still. I am holding you. One shouldn't run away from a ruler. End quote. This is animal cruelty, and I don't like it at all. Quote, you are unbearable. End quote. I can't pull myself together to show some indignation. I can't abase myself in front of a ruler. I don't have any desire to be important. Even my tobacco has run out, so I can't go on writing. I am too deeply convinced by the importance of little things to declare myself independent of the aforementioned circumstances. You don't frighten or tempt me. I hope you will admit that you've been overcome. That's not in quotes, but it could have been the soul. Maybe he was telling the soul. Maybe he's telling the soul, hey, you, the soul, has been overcome by me, the not soul, apparently. The Carl. Quote, success will tell. End quote. Well, I'll take my chances. All right. Well, there it is. Something happened. A ruler. How long is the next one? All right, we'll read one more. You knew that already because you tapped the screen and saw there was a bunch left, didn't you? February 22nd. Wow, he's like skipping. He skipped a whole week this time. All right. 1914. I did not think that I would return so soon. But your fulfillments are so odd and so wonderful, O my soul, that I had to get back right away. I'm not reporting on things you know, but I want to tell you that everything still resounds in me from the fulfillment that has come to me. I'm not judging, although I almost did and nearly collapsed. Last night, a dream showed me standing in my garden. Many pure foundations had leaped up, and water trickled from everywhere. I diligently channeled all the water into a deep ditch that led it back again to the womb of the earth. With this dream I've come back, since it seemed to me that I had to go back into the depths. What do you think? Quote, I think you are on the right path. End quote. If I am on the right path, then tell me where to go. Quote, don't ask me, but look around. End quote. Then there's the little line to indicate that Carl Jung is going under. Anyway, I see a wide plain, high tufts of grass, dry earth, a clear sky above. Far off I see a herd of cattle tended by mounted shepherds with long lances. They are wearing broad-brimmed straw hats. Oh, at least there's something about them that's not sexual. Oh, wait, no, broad-brimmed straw hats. Very sexual. Continuing. Before me stands one of the shepherds with a long, brown, haggard face. He looks familiar to me, remarkably like me. What's that about? Who are you? G. I guess G stands for shepherd. A German who got bored by the German Fatherland. And I can't do a good German accent, which is unfortunate. A German who got bored by the German Fatherland. I can do a bad one. Maybe that will suffice. No, I'll just say a German who got bored by the German fatherland. It's an accent I can do. Let's pretend that's a German accent, shall we? I. Is it better for you here? G. Better and worse. We live here in a quite primitive way with all the disadvantages and advantages of primitives. But we are free and unrestrained. For that, one can put up with a lot. As someone who hasn't tasted root beer in 4 years, I can kind of know. I'll just keep reading. Don't you regret having bid farewell to civilization? It's just root beer, Carl. Jesus. German. Perhaps I might, but due to this life you forget the things you do not have. But don't you miss culture all the time? You call that culture? Fuck, I'm in India, you idiot. Los Angeles. Sorry, I'll just detach myself from it. This is Carl and a German in his head. German. No, actually no. I somehow carry culture in me as a kind of inner tension and desire. Isn't this excruciating? German. Oh no, we're troubled enough by the harshness of primitive life. Thus, desire for culture scarcely bothers us. It is a rather comfortable feeling, full of foreboding. But doesn't it bother you that your life is so isolated and that you never really attain the peak of your cultural potential? Every Indian could, something crossed out, take up your position just as well as you, but you could achieve much better things if you stood in your culture. Oh, a little bit of crossover with the bullshit Carl's going on about on Secret of the Golden Flower, eh? Serendipity all over the place. Sorry. I'll tone down the editorial commentary. Turn it down 15%. Okay. Sorry. Where were we? German. You might be right. But this wonderful free life, one can't let it go. Live life in the cities is a cross-out, means deformity. One more or less in civilization, what difference does the individual make? What if everyone thought like you? What? This stupid question, Carl. I mean, it's a valid thought experiment, but you don't have to do everything based on some hypothetical idea of needing for everybody to do it that way. For one thing, you'll then become an evangelist for being vegan or whatever, even if you promise that you won't. Sorry, half-formed thoughts sometimes get pulled out by Carl. He has that gift, doesn't he? What if everyone thought like you? What would become of the cultural achievement of mankind? German. I am far from saying that my behavior should be exemplary. I was never a role model, nor do I want to become one. But I demand the right to live my individuality. If everyone thought like me, perhaps civilization might look differently. How many cowards and weaklings do you have among your cultural laborers who participate only because of their cowardice and weakness, but at heart would like to do something else if their anxiety would permit them? It's a fair point, German, in Carl's head. I must agree with you on this point. But I cannot reconcile myself with the thought that you prefer to conduct such a sterile life, in which you only indulge in your wild instincts and your intellectual gifts lie idle. German. They don't lie. Now we know the research that Carl does for his introduction to Secret of the Golden Flower, when he's like, I'm quite expert in people who leave civilization behind and live in a primitive way. I've met plenty of people and interviewed them. In fact, they're in your head, Carl. That doesn't count. We all suspected they were in your head, and now we have proof. Sorry. They're your patients. Lucky their anonymity is so important, because then you don't have to admit that they don't exist except in your head. Sorry, I'll just stop picking on Carl now. Sorry, Carl. We're cool for now. Okay. They don't lie entirely idle. I do think, but only for myself. You should try making a stupid YouTube channel called Chicken Philosophy. But do cultured men think for each other? Everyone thinks for himself, if he can at all. One who thinks for others is either an exception or a philosopher. A chicken philosopher. I'm just kidding. I'm not intending to think for you. Who thinks only for others insofar as he wants all the others to think or pray along the same lines of his system. Oh, yeah, that's not what I'm doing here. But I do insist on carving out a path for at least one person who thinks the way I think. Right? And I look around, if I keep my mouth shut and I look around at all the different ways that there are to think, I see no path that even remotely resembles how I think. So, that way, the philosopher also has the effect of an educator. although his intention could be quite egoistic. I know mine is. Cultural labor is not possible without egoism, although it sometimes depends on just how something is achieved. At others, what matters is not how it's done, but that it's done at all. As I said, it seems to me that you are ducking your cultural task. Oh, fuck you, Carl. Sorry, I said I was going to keep that to myself. German. How moralistic you are. Don't you believe in the rights of the personality? Yes, I also, cross out also, believe in it. But I also believe in the work of culture building. That work is bigger than the individual and its indubitable rights. This is the guy that everybody talks about, how great he is? This is Carl Jung. Okay, this is when he was young, Edward. Everybody's young at some point. There's a reason why Carl Jung didn't publish this stuff. Although he did publish his introduction to The Secret of the Golden Flower. That is a strong point against him. But then maybe he got better. I don't know. I haven't really read much Carl Jung. Heard a lot about him. But the stuff I hear is usually kind of like, oh, that's useful for humanity. Anyway. All right. Everybody's young once. Yeah. Oh, yeah. German. But if I feel more comfortable as a shepherd? That's precisely the point that raises my doubts. You don't fully credit that you feel happier as a half-savage than when you take up your task in culture. The life you lead here doesn't stretch your limits, so you are all too hampered in spite of your unbounded freedom. You only have boundlessness when your work exceeds you. German. I must admit that I haven't been the cowherd you see here all my life. I wasn't forthright earlier about why I left my Fatherland. Don't forget, this is a German. I had a task there. I was in the midst of the effort, and that effort exceeded my limits. It even got the better of me in some incalculable way, and I was completely alone working on that task. And the immensity of that was overwhelming. I saw the infinity of my task, and courage and faith drained away. I escaped into the desert and renounced civilization. I'd rather choose the torments of the primitive, half-savage life than the unbearable burden of an immense task that overwhelms me. Yes, I give up because I am too weak to shoulder the infinite. I returned to the finite, back to limited human life, where the task and the life burn out together. I prefer a life alone with the most dangerous animals of the wild than with this terrible task. Yeah, man or bear, right? One has one's gun and one's cunning, but victory is at least possible. Doesn't that kind of mission always dwarf us? Here one can count on his neighbor, who will lend a hand. There no one hears you. On the contrary, they set you as many stumbling blocks as they can, so that you won't succumb to the illusion that you can take up the job in earnest. I threw off the impossible and came back to the possible. I don't know what's happening with his accent. Sorry. But it seems to me that there were other possibilities between your early life and your life as it is now. It wasn't necessary to run immediately into the wilderness when you could not solve your probably overwhelming task. One can also, it seems, cut one's task down to size. German. You are reasonable and your views are balanced, but have you ever tasted infinity? Have you ever felt the pain and destruction that befalls he who no longer has the strength left to push the immense block any further? Have you ever tasted the bitterness that is doled out to anyone who wishes to create beyond himself? What shall I tell you about the abandonment, the loneliness, the hell of desperation? That is what I accuse myself of. Do you understand that? I think I do, my brother. The human heart has rights that should not be denied. We remain silent for a long time because at this point we must. So he's not talking. He's telling us that they remain silent. Okay. We cannot dispute the hardship of the human heart. My brother, I understand your flight. The burden was too great. Was there no one to understand you? German, maybe. But what's the point? Fear stifled me and I came back to myself only when I hit bottom. First they put the ruler in the boot, now they hit bottom. There's a theme happening here. It's a little bit. Sorry. Clasping nature to my bosom. I drank the pure water of freedom like someone dying from thirst. Since then, I have lived again. What help would have come from understanding, from human consolation? Do they counterbalance this free wilderness, this untrammeled nature? I must agree with you. But I cannot agree with you about remaining in the wilderness. You are not a coward or weakling. If you are capable of this sacrifice, you will also be able to take on your difficult task again. Don't be frantic in your determination. Rather, be open to persuasion. It seems to me that you have lived here long enough. The work awaits you. So he took a week off from journaling, came back to journaling, and said, I didn't think I'd come back so soon. And then had this conversation with himself, his own inner German who abandoned the complexities of being a German in favor of being a shepherd, apparently in India or in Native American. It wasn't clear. But, yeah, okay. Carl Jung wants to get himself back in the game. All right. Well, that was fun, I guess. And next time, it'll be Gwydion, and it'll be Nag Hammadi. That's fun. But before that, keep an eye on the Shingon. Did I already point to that? I don't think so. The Shingon playlist as part 5. Shingon part 5 will be coming up before Nag Hammadi 5. All right. Happy birthday, Mom, wherever you are. And until next time.